college athletics is changing, and we held on to an amateurism concept for decade after decade, and we didn't make the necessary changes, and now it seems like everything's coming at us at one time. But
all right, welcome in. That was Kirby Hocutt. He is the Texas Texas Tech athletic director, and that was on Sirius XM. Welcome in on this Wednesday the 25th. Dennis Fithian here with you, ready to go and talk some college football, the ever-changing landscape. It's crazy. In 25 years or so, was working in sports talk radio, and in the off season, a lot of us, especially when I worked in Ann Arbor, you'd say, "Oh man, it gets pretty thin about things to talk about." It's like you're talking about the same old stuff, like every day. It's like, well, should they, have a championship game? Should they have an expanded college football playoff? Should they pay players? Should they allow transfers? All these different things. And it got pretty old because it never looked like it was going to change. I mean, year after year. And then now in the last year, certainly in the last 2 years, everything has changed in college football more in the last 2 years than it's changed in 50, maybe 100 years. I don't know. You get the helmets and things, so maybe some of the equipment, but there have been definitely a lot of changes. Maybe that's just it with how things work in technology. It's like it's very slow, and then suddenly just everything's changing. Bam, 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 bam. And but with college football, it definitely has changed that way. And we're going to talk about a little bit of that landscape here today. You can always get your feedback in. I already see some coming in from OMTWNN on the feedback. We are on Clubhouse. You can check us out there. The ability to take your calls as well. And you can leave your feedback on Clubhouse as well. We are going to be talking about the college football winners and losers. If there are no divisions, which it is, say it is trending that way. The Big 12 went that way. The Pac-12 jumped right in. And then, the SEC, ACC, and Big 10 are I think sure to follow suit when it comes down. And we also we're always getting into the possibility of the playoff. And they teased this last year. I don't remember exactly at one point. Like we were thinking, a 14 playoff. Maybe they expand it to 6, and then from 6, maybe they go to 8. Maybe they look at an 8. Maybe they look at a 10 model. But then they just come out and said, "What about a 12-team model?" Everybody's like, "12-team model? What's up with that?" So we'll talk about the winners and losers in a potential 12-team playoff. And if they do, which I think they will, ditch the divisions, and in the Big 10, who would be the winner and loser in those scenarios? Well, it says unmute. It had me on mute there for a second. So if you couldn't hear me and you just saw me waving my hands around, I don't know what was going on. Maybe turn that button up there. Okay, here we go. I think OM can hear me because he's saying things about what's going on. He could have just been reading what was up there on the page. So before we go any further, let me tell you about our new sponsor here at Maize and Blue Review. And support is brought to you by Manscaped, who is the best in men's below-the-waist grooming. Their products are precision-engineered tools. Manscaped's Performance Package, the ultimate men's hygiene bundle. Join me and over 4 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with this exclusive offer for you. 20% off and free worldwide shipping with the code TMBR at manscaped.com. I want to congratulate all seniors, high school, and college. Now you're thinking about getting them a gift in addition to cash, giving them a little cash. Also, how about sending them the performance package, the ultimate men's hygiene bundle? They will love that. That's a great idea. They'll remember you. Yeah, everybody, if you want to slide them, $1,000, they'll remember you. They'll remember you when you send them the Manscaped package as well. And today you can get 20% off with free shipping. Use the code TMBR at checkout at manscaped.com. 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com. Use the code TMBR. Unlock your confidence and always use the right tool for the job with Manscaped. Okay, we are on Clubhouse. We can take your calls there if you want to jump in. We're talking about the future of college football with a chance that Power Five and more, the group of five, they're going to ditch their divisions as well, likely. But certainly the Power Five, we have seen two of them go that direction. And we'll see if the Big Ten, the SEC, and the ACC follow suit. The Big 12 has already ditched their divisions, and the Pac-12 said they are going to do it as well. So 2/5 of the Power Five, 2/5, 40% of the Power Five has gone that direction, and that does look like the direction that it's going. Let's get to the feedback in real time. Here's Amazing Math asking about the Michigan NIL news yesterday. Players can now use the Block M. Yeah, I think that is very, very good news. You want to put it as great news? I'm with you on that. Why would it be great news? Well, before players had, I think of Aiden Hutchinson last year, you could get his 97, but it didn't have the Block M on there. Being able to use the Block M, when you think about just how well known Michigan's Mays Block M is, that's nothing but a positive for U of M. And whether you say they're walking, not running with name, image, and likeness, however you want to look at it, OM saying let the recruits start committing, because it seems like Michigan has taken name, image, and likeness more seriously. I think that Michigan is taking name, image, and likeness seriously. They know that this is a part of it. If you are a member of Mays Blue Review, the Wolverine Den, our senior editor, Brandon Justice, has an ongoing series where he's talking name, image, and likeness. And the first one, that just dropped yesterday. He's got some great stuff that's in there about name, image, and likeness. But the Michigan is definitely dialed in. Now, did they get after recruiting like Texas A&M, where they bought their players? And I know Jimbo, no, we didn't buy any players. You guys are all lying. We got, nobody's buying anybody. The head coach, Jimbo doesn't think so, and maybe his assistant coaches, but however it was working, I think that we agree that at least it looks like he bought them all. And what Nick Saban was saying, I believe that he did. But put that aside, Michigan focusing in on it, it really comes down to, let's just say Texas A&M did buy their players, and let's say USC did promise that wide receiver, $1 million package to decommit from Pittsburgh and go to USC, because that's what was being said. And the kid did not even hit the transfer portal yet. Then he hit the transfer portal, and there, he was promised all that. He did end up at USC, just like the rumors were. So it was true. And that, whether you want to call it dirty pool, good business, hey, anybody can do anything else, tampering, however you want to look at it, it was done. Has Michigan weighed it in where they're just like, hey, here's the cash, and they're waving it around and telling the players, come get it? If they commit, they haven't gone that route. But I look at the name, image, and likeness. Yesterday or the day before, I showed you, or I told you about it. I didn't put the picture up, but you've got Michigan's two starting offensive guards. They're two interior offensive linemen, two good ones, Zach Zinter and Trevor Keegan. Keegan, the day before, had tweeted out that he had a relationship with Lamborghini. And I was like, oh, hey, Lamborghini, Trevor Keegan. And then the next day, Keegan and Zinter, there was a picture of them both in this white Lamborghini. And I think it was Zinter that said the NLI has been good to us. And there's some critics that would say, well, that's great for those players. You got to get the recruits. And that's the part. Instead of promising a recruit like, hey, you can have a white Lamborghini if you commit to us, Michigan is showing the imagery of, and these aren't, the quarterback's one thing, star wide receiver, 5-star defensive back. That's one thing. We're talking about big uglies. We're talking about, and not even the glamour position, if there is one, on the offensive line of left tackle, or as I'm, told all the time by former Michigan centers that, center, that's the smartest guy. That's the key to the offensive line. I'll buy that. But you're talking about 2 guards and tooling around in Ann Arbor in a white Lambo. That imagery right there, it's not saying, hey, here are the keys, but it might as well be. And that's the difference. Texas A&M saying, you come in here, sign on a dotted line, we got you a white Lamborghini waiting in the parking lot. Michigan's approach is, come on into Michigan, and if you do, look at what our players have been able to do and taking advantage of these new rules in the name, image, and likeness. We got our quarterbacks with all kinds of different deals, both of them. Kate McNamara's got something going on with Tom Brady. You've got, I just saw a Dunkin' Donuts deal today for J.J. McCarthy. You've got, right down the list. And then they're the Lambos, and now you can use the Block M. So, yeah, they're small things, but that distinction about, they're not necessarily promising it to them. They're not, actually. It's not necessarily. They're not directly promising that to recruits, but also the recruits, it's not lost on them that, look, when I go to Michigan, I can have the Lambo. I can get 6, maybe 7-figure NLI deals. Look at Hunter Dickinson. So that's the distinction. If you want, when you say, who said it, taking it seriously, it was OM. Michigan's taking it very seriously. What they are not doing is promising the pay for play, which is actually the only rule that the NCAA has out. But it's very easy to just say, hey, why don't you go on and come here to Texas A&M? We've got a lot of nice things for you if you commit. Well, that'd be breaking the rules. But if you say, if you come on into Texas A&M, you might have a chance at being able to get all this. It's just that where you're not promising it, whether you're, winking your eye or whatever else, or just saying, hey, there's a chance that you could get this, but we can't promise it to you. But we are kind of promising it to you. It sounds a little complicated or double speak, because it is. Michigan is, in effect, with their name, image, and likeness, you can come in and you can make bank. You can have endorsements left and right. You can drive around campus in a white Lamborghini, but they're just not promising you that to come to Michigan. But the promise is that you can, once you come in, make it. I don't know. It sounds a little weird, but that is the distinction. Michigan has deep pocket alumni, so money isn't a problem for Michigan. The question, does Michigan want to be elite in recruiting and make the college football early? Well, I can promise you this. Michigan wants to be elite in recruiting, and they want to make the college football playoffs this year. So when you talk about deep pocket alumni, sure. I talked to, I'll put him in, if he was watching this, he'd say, yeah, you put me in the deep pocket alumni. I'd say, yeah, you actually are part of the deep pocketed alumni. I asked him how many times he had been contacted for a potential collective for Michigan. And he said he hadn't been. Now, that was probably like 2 weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago now, that I talked to a deep-pocketed alumni who would be one of the first persons that you would call. He would be one of the first people. First person. No, he would be one of the first persons that you would call. Sometimes you say something, you got to go back over it. He would be one of the first people that you would call if you wanted to get somebody in and talk about a collective. So again, there's the distinction, and however you want to do it, maybe just rush it right up there and say, hey, let's, pull out the pretenses. We don't need any of that. That's not much of a leap to saying we are promising to basically, promising, but not promising, Michigan's in there. They just don't want to be. Now you could say, Why don't they just get with the time and act like Texas A&M? You can say that what Nick Saban was doing when he was crying last week and telling everybody that Texas A&M bought the recruits, he really wasn't going after Jimbo. He was going after his own donors. That's what Deion said. He just wanted money. And maybe that's what you're doing, OM. You're just like, let's forget all this. Like, why do we have to beat around the bush? It's not that big of a deal. Take it right up to the line. Wave the cash, have the keys to the Lamborghini, say, hey, we're actually not promising this to you. But actually they are. That's it. You just have to walk across the street. Michigan can't take all the cash and drop it off at your door. They can't pull the Lamborghini into your driveway when you're a high school player. But just look, there it all is. There's the cash. It's just laying right across the street. Big bags of cash. And there are the Lamborghinis. But you have to commit. And you have to go to Michigan to get it. They're just not promising it to you. You can say, why don't they just go ahead and do it? Why not? That's the one rule. Michigan, that is the hill that they protected. I didn't say they died on it, but that was the one over the last 20 years that they stood on. We are not outwardly going after and pursuing high school players with financial packages, or we're not having a third party, contact their uncle or their, whoever to funnel money to them. We're not doing that. Even though the majority, we've been over this, teams that win the college football championship or in that college football championship game, you would look at it and you would say, yeah, those teams are all probably doing it. Michigan did not. If you're asking me honestly, do I think they should have over the years? I mean, now that they haven't done it, it sounds kind of stupid to go ahead and admit that's how, I wish they would have gone into it and looked at different ways too. Because my thought is that over the years, watching college football, that the payer, certainly over the last 10 years, there were two things. The NCAA was not doing anything, even though it was a rule. The NCAA was unable to enforce any of the rules. And the teams that were going to the college football playoff, whether it was the BCS and then, over the last 7-8 years, the college football championship, you could look at them and we all knew, however they were doing it, that most of these teams actually were paying the players. Now, if you ask me and you ask most college football fans, do you think college football players should get paid? Over the last 10 years, it has been a resounding yes. So the teams have been just like, it's the right thing to do. Who really cares? The NCAA can't do anything about it. And yet Michigan chose to stand on. That wasn't just Michigan, but Michigan was one of the teams that chose to say, no, we're not going to play it that way. And even now, Michigan is reluctant now that, they've opened this up and the lines are completely blurred, and it is very easy to go over and be like, yeah, come on in. We're not going to really, we're not handing this to you, but we're also got, Lamborghinis and big NLI packages. I know it gets, I don't know if it's confusing or it sounds like I just keep talking about things like over and over and over again. Michigan does recruit the South. They do try to do it like Ohio State, but they have been reluctant to do it exactly like Ohio State and other schools. Will they? Are these positive steps, what they're doing here? They are. Should it even the playing field a little bit? I think it will. The doors are sitting there where you can just, I get the part, like, why not just knock down those doors? People don't care if the players are getting money. So, and if you're giving it to them anyways, why not just say? You don't have to say it publicly. You don't have to say anything else. But why not just tell these guys, hey, everything you want, it's there. Come to Michigan. Instead of saying, there's a chance that if you come to us, look what you can do. It's semantics, and it's that's it. Doesn't really feel like cheating anymore. That easy conversation. Does this sound like cheating? If you come to Michigan, you can take advantage of the name, image, and likeness. Look at Trevor Keegan. He has a white Lamborghini. Come to Michigan. You could be like J.J. McCarthy. He's got 6-figure deals. coming out of his ears, as opposed to saying, hey, come to Michigan. We'll give you a white Lamborghini. Hey, come to Michigan. You get 6-figure deals. There's the distinction. Not a whole lot between it. Michigan has still got that line there. I get it. Break it down. If you want to play with the big boys, act like the big boys. Let's do it. All right. As you can see, it's easy for me to go through all of that. Paul asking, besides Clubhouse, what other stream services are you broadcasting? Paul, if you are listening on Clubhouse, we are currently live every day on YouTube. You can also go through Maize Blue Review on Facebook. We are also through Maize Blue Review on Twitter. We also, wherever you may find podcasts, I listen to mine through Apple, where we have Spotify. You can listen to them. You can't. I don't know if you can listen to them. No, you can't live. I'm the one that posts it. But as soon as I'm done, that's what I go do is I post them to podcasts. So if you just like the podcast part, that's available there for you. Of course, you can just listen to it on Clubhouse as well. So there it is. Okay. Winners and losers in the future of college football. Let's get to this. So teams with the Big 12 and Pac-12 now, with their no divisions, who would be the winners if the other three Power 5 conferences scrapped the divisions? Almost all of the teams in the SEC West, almost all of the teams in the Big East, and almost all the teams in the ACC Atlantic Division. I'll explain that. Who would be the losers? Well, the teams that are locked in with Ohio State, Clemson, and Alabama. Those have been the perennial powerhouses in college football. Now, let's explain that a little bit further. I think you'll get it. And we'll start out with the SEC West. That's where Alabama resides. Alabama every year plays LSU, Auburn, Texas A&M, Ole Miss, Arkansas, and Mississippi State. That's tough. If you're somebody like Ole Miss, you got to play Alabama every year. You're out there in the SEC West, you got to play them. You're over there in the East, like Florida and Georgia, you don't have to necessarily play them. It might come up every once in a while. I think Florida played Bama for the first time in like 10 years. But if they do scrap the divisions, you are going to either have one locked-in game or three locked-in games. The more that I look at it, the more that I think it's just going to be one locked-in game. That's the way to go. And you get to the part where you say, what's best for college football? What's best for these teams in making money? Alabama and Auburn, the Iron Bowl, that is a traditional game that pulls in great ratings and that everybody will watch. You have to keep that game locked in. So but Auburn every year is going to have to play Alabama. That means they're a loser because they've got to play the Tide every year, where all of these other teams get a break, and they're going to play them every other year. That is a big time break, and you are a big time winner if you are LSU, if you are Texas A&M, if you're Ole Miss, Arkansas, or Mississippi State. If you locked three teams in that you had to play every year, I would say that Bama should play LSU and Auburn. Those are two really tough games. Now, you could say, give them another tough one like Georgia or Florida. Those would be very highly rated games. Make them play Oklahoma. Make them play Texas. Again, very highly rated games, but the SEC is not trying to cut off their nose either. They want Alabama to win the national championship or go to the college football. They want somebody from the SEC, and Bama's the best choice right now. So they're not just going to load up Alabama and give them a gauntlet every year. So you have to keep that in mind. What's best for college football? Would it be best if Alabama played Auburn, LSU, and let's say Georgia right now? Wow, what a hell of a lineup. It would be, but that's not realistic. That's why I keep struggling over the should they lock in one? Should they lock in two? Should they lock in three? I think they should just lock in one. And then however this, the pod system works, every other year you try to play these teams. Now, 14, what do they got? 16 teams down there? How that would ever work? That's the SEC. Let's go to the ACC. Now, Clemson rules the roost there. They had a down year last year. If they had another down year this year, maybe you could say they were sliding out of being a perennial power or whatever else, and things do change, but Dabo's still there. I'm expecting the Clemson come back with, I don't know, a vengeance. I expect them to be back there in the mix. Don't you? What's up, Keith? I was looking at the ACC standings and looking at both divisions and then looking at the Atlantic, and I thought, who is Clemson's biggest rival? Oh, Clemson, South Carolina. It's in the state of South Carolina. Well, South Carolina is Clemson's biggest rival. Well, they're not in the ACC, so eliminate South Carolina. So it's coming down to either Florida State. I looked it up. And also, if you Google who's Clemson's biggest rival in football, other than South Carolina, it says Florida State or Georgia Tech. So who would be the winners if Clemson just locked in? I would say Florida State right now. All of those other teams in the Atlantic. So let's go through them. BC would be a winner. Louisville, a winner. NC State would be a winner. Syracuse and Wake Forest, all winners. The loser, Florida State. I got to play Clemson every year. Now we'll do it with the Big Ten. Winners and losers. All of these teams in the Big Ten East, they all have to play Ohio State every year. If they do, scrap the divisions. One thing that we know for sure is that Michigan and Ohio State are going to play every year. For Michigan, you could say that means they are a loser because they are going to be locked in every single season, and they're going to have to play Ohio State, where everyone else, if it's just one, they're not going to have to play Ohio State. And those off years when you don't have to play the Buckeyes, that's a huge break. Now, if they go to three teams and Ohio State has to play Michigan, Penn State, and I don't know who else, so Indiana, you got to give them an easy team in there. It's not like you can say Ohio State plays. They have to play Wisconsin, they got to play Michigan, and they got to play Penn State. That's not reasonable. Remember, what's best for college football, what's realistic for college football, it's not realistic to see Ohio State play three of the top teams. Who ends up being the winner? If it's just one team, well, it's Penn State and Michigan State. That would be huge for them. They're teams that have danced around. Penn State a little bit more than Michigan State, but Michigan State has danced around. And I know Spartan fans want to eat at the big boy table. And under the scenario where they would only have to play one, Penn State, Michigan State, and every other year of having not to play Ohio State, that would be a huge schedule break. That would make Ohio State and Michigan State winners. Of course, Maryland, Rutgers, and Indiana, winners. They don't have to play the Buckeyes every year. Huge advantage. Even if they do go to three teams, Ohio State is not playing Michigan State every year. They would play, if it's three, they're going to play Michigan, Penn State, and whoever else. I don't know who else the third one. It's going to be an easier team. It's going to be Indiana. That's a break for Michigan State. I think Michigan State fans understand it. I know Michigan fans like, well, that sucks. Michigan State gets a break every other year. They don't have to play Ohio State. Well, it's the way it's going. It is going to be a break for Michigan State. What can you do? Like you can say as a Michigan fan, you can't force Michigan State to play Ohio. That's not going to happen. What's best for college football and then what's best for Ohio State, who rules the roost? If you were even locking in three teams, could you lock Ohio State into Michigan State, and Indiana? You could, and then you would say, oh, Michigan State, that would be a huge break for Penn State. And Ohio State, Penn State, people want to see it regionally, and they want to see it nationally. Penn State over Michigan State. So Michigan State gets a break here in how it's going to play out. Anyway, they scrapped the divisions. All the teams other than Michigan in the East are going to get a break. If they go to three, then Michigan and Penn State, you can say they're losers, but because they're going to have to play Ohio State, it's going to. But Michigan State, Maryland, Rutgers, and Indiana, that is a big time break for them, just like it is for the rest of those teams in the SEC West, just like it is for those other teams in the ACC. All right. OM says, I just want Michigan to be elite, like the old times. Well, I would like to see them get back to previous to 2008 as well. And every year up until 2007, I could go into the offseason. It actually felt a lot like this offseason feels. Michigan made the college football playoff. They won the Big Ten. They beat Ohio State. And they have a really nice team coming back. And they have a great schedule. So you can think about if Michigan gets a few bounces and a couple plays like, last year that Eric All 47-yard touchdown, that went Michigan's way. If, that play, the strip fumble and touchdown, the sack would have gone their way in the Michigan State game, they could have won that one. You can't say that they were one or two plays away in the Georgia game because, Georgia annihilated them, but a couple plays go your way. The games that you win or lose, you could say in the Nebraska game too. That came down to, Michigan had to get that strip right at the end. Hawkins coming down, they could have lost that game. That was a big play for Michigan. They could have lost that one. You could make the case for Rutgers, came down to a play or two. I'll agree with that one. We just went over Michigan State. Just went over Penn State. There's 4 games that, they did end up losing one of them, but they could have lost easily another 2 or 3 games there, and they didn't this time. My point is that you like it where Michigan's in position where it comes down to just a play or 3 ends up deciding their season on whether they're going to play for a Big Ten championship game or not. The funny thing about that is I don't think it came down to just a play or 2 against Ohio State. I think Ohio State needed more than a play or 2. Maybe 3 plays. It was still relatively close, even though Michigan dominated them. It felt like for the majority of that game. I know. I would like to see it get back to that. And I think overall, name, image, and likeness is positive for Michigan. The scrapping of the divisions, in some of those scenarios, you think back, Michigan they would have to play Ohio State twice. They would have had to play Ohio State twice last year. Great win at home. What if they had to replay that game in Indianapolis last year? Think about that. What about, 2016? That was the game where JT Barrett was, that short and they gave it to him. I don't complain too much about that because I look at things objectively. That call could have gone. That was a real 50-50 call, and Ohio State was at home. Penn State ended up going to the Big Ten championship game that year. Michigan had beat them earlier. Ohio State beat Michigan, although Michigan and Ohio State were ranked 2-3. If they just went on the rankings, maybe it would have been Michigan. Ohio State again that year. There's some other years that you look through it. The point is that Michigan, you can have a great season, beat Ohio State, and then you might have to play them the very next week on a neutral field. It's going to make it more tough for the Wolverines, but this is the way it's going. Do you want what's best for college football? What's best for college football is to scrap the divisions. I would rather see a more entertaining championship game. It would have been more entertaining to see Michigan and Ohio State play again the following week. It would have been tough. And it's going to be tough for the Wolverines. If you want to just say, let's just keep it the same because I get that because it is then Michigan only has to play Ohio State once. And Michigan State has to play them once every year too. So it depends. I would be interested to hear from Michigan fans about scrapping these divisions. You're always going to have to play Ohio State, and if it's just one, everybody else isn't going to have to. That's going to be a break for everybody else. If they go to 3, it's still going to be a break, not for Penn State and probably Indiana, but it's going to be a break for all those other teams, including Michigan State. So you're going to have to concede that. Not only do you have to play Ohio State once, but you're going to, a lot of times, you're going to have to play them twice. That's going to be tough on Michigan. So if you're a Michigan fan, you might just say, I hope they don't go to this immediately. And it doesn't look like they're going to go to it this year. But you say, I hope they don't go and scrap the divisions in the Big Ten because this is going to be tough on Michigan. Certainly can understand that argument. It's going to be tough on Michigan. They're going to have to play Ohio State twice a lot of times if they want to win the Big Ten. And it's going to be easier for a team like Michigan State for sure. And if they only go to one team, it's going to be easier for a team like Penn State. So consider that as you're thinking about it. OM pointing out that Ohio State's so elite that they will not suffer if the Big Ten changes. Well, that's right. If you're Alabama, it's not going to matter. If you're Ohio State, it's not going to matter. It's not going to matter if you're Clemson. That's why I put those teams up. For everybody else, it is going to matter who you play. But let's bring that's an interesting one because Alabama is the one when you think about going to a 12-team playoff, and I'll do this quickly for you. So the proposal that was put out there last year, remember you get your top 5 power conferences, whoever wins that championship game gets an automatic bid, and you get the group of 5 right now. They get an automatic bid. You know, that was Cincinnati last year. So you get the power 5s, and then you had Cincy last year. They're the ones that get the automatic bid. The top 4 conference championships, they go by rankings. You know, they end up getting the bye. That means Georgia last year, who won it all, since they lost to Alabama, they would not have gotten a bye. So you can say, see, there's already wrinkles. Here's the other wrinkle that I think the SEC, this could be the one that's going to hold things up. The teams that are ranked 5 through 8 get to host on campus. So now, wait a second. Let's just look at those teams from last year. So 5 through 8 means Georgia would have had a home game. That'd have been hosted Pitt. But so if you're 9 through 12, if there's a 12-team playoff, you have to play on the road at an on-campus site. And SEC teams, there's no SEC teams that would have fit this bill last year, but let's just say it could happen really easy. Let's just say Alabama, Georgia, or Florida somehow end up being ranked 9 through 12. Now, let's say a team like Michigan, let's even say Michigan State, end up in the 5 through 9. So they get a home game. Let's say Michigan had a home game against Alabama. On what would this? So the college football, Michigan played Iowa in the Big Ten championship game on December the 4th. On December the 11th, Michigan Stadium against Alabama. So you think about that for a second. If you're Greg Sankey, the SEC commissioner, and you say, what's good for college football? What's good for the SEC? What's great for college football? Seeing on-site a 12-team playoff, Alabama having to go to Michigan where it could be snowing like it was last year, the tide to be all, woo, that'd be a great equalizer. Bring the Gators on up. Gators that have those ski masks on, and this time not, they got ski masks on a lot of times down there in Florida, but it's not to, that's a joke for another time. They would have their ski masks on, having to play in 20-degree weather with the snow coming down, playing Michigan. Great equalizer. That's going to be a hurdle that I think the SEC is going to put up. Greg Sankey's going to say, that's a huge advantage. Now you could just say, hey, why don't you just go ahead and win it? You get a bye. Why don't you just go be pretty good? Then you get the home game, which would be awesome for us. No. There might be a chance that you have to travel to Michigan. I think that Greg Sankey is going to say, let's play those on neutral. Let's play those at neutral sites and enclosed stadiums, like the conference championship games. That neutralizes the weather, but the rest of the so they have to decide whether they want to do something that's great for college football, or whether they want to subject their teams to having to play in the cold. And Gators can't handle the cold. Tide can't handle the cold. None of those teams down there in the South, Texas can't handle the cold. Oklahoma can't handle it. None of these teams can handle the cold. I think they're going to put up a stink about that. I think that's what's going to happen. And, as great as Alabama is, and Alabama will play someone, but they don't like playing them. They don't want to get to any home and home. Alabama will play on a neutral site like in Texas. They'll play at neutral site in Atlanta. Alabama does not, of course they don't want to, but I think their commissioner is going to do. That is one of the big hangups. SEC likes it how it is right now because they've got it the best, and their teams are always going and winning the championship, so they're reluctant to change to begin with. And I think they're going to be reluctant to want to send those teams up. They're going to get a call real quick from Nick Saban. Hey, Greg, we don't want to go up to Michigan. All right, we ain't going up there. All right, we'd go up maybe to Indianapolis or we'd play at Atlanta, but we're not going up to Ann Arbor in the middle of December. Right? Okay, that's when it comes down to it. All right, coming up tomorrow here on Maize and Blue Review. Michigan Football Live. We'll bring in a former Wolverine, Jim Scarcelli, like we do on every Thursday. Scar has looked around the Big Ten, and he has ranked the offensive systems in the conference. Scar will do that for us tomorrow. Antoine, one last feedback point from Antoine, who says for years Northern schools had to go somewhere in the South and play Southern locations, and they were not neutral places. It was pretty much a home game for them. Well, great point, Antoine. Like, you're singing to the choir here. I should have one of those shiny robes on. Exactly. Michigan had to go out and play the Rose Bowl, which they dreamed of doing, and had to play, USC or UCLA in their own backyard. Those guys are sleeping in their own beds. Michigan's out there and having to play on the road, travel 3,000 miles to play a road game. Good point. But one that it's just something to watch. Maybe there's going to be something to entice Greg saying it's going to be big time cash no matter what happens. So maybe when he sees the money, that he'll just be like, we're going to get so much money anyways, it doesn't matter. Maybe he can promise something to Nick Saban. Maybe Nick Saban, I think, he can't coach till he's 80. Well, something's going to have to happen anyways, probably over the next 5 years. How long is Nick Saban going to coach anyways? And after 5 years, maybe it'll be Ole Miss will be the team that's ruling the roost, and then you'll want to be locked in with them. So those are things to consider. I hope they do go to a 12-team playoff. Scrapping the divisions, it's going to be tough for Michigan, but it's going to make it more exciting. And I will speak out of both sides of my mouth. Like, I do like exciting football for Michigan. Like, as much as I keep talking about the non-conference and just how simple and super easy, and man, Michigan should be mowing through this non-conference schedule. They're going to be 3-0 for sure. They're going to be 4-0 almost for sure. And, they're likely to run roughshod through the Big Ten and go undefeated going into Ohio State. I believe that as I sit here right now. But I would rather have Michigan playing Notre Dame in the non-conference. I would rather have Michigan playing Texas in a home and home. I would much rather see that. In fact, I would rather see Michigan playing Notre Dame and Texas in their non-conference. You say, that's crazy. Why don't you just go ahead and, stab yourself in the heart? Because I love those games. And there's a part about it like, go ahead and win those and then win the rest too. It's unrealistic, I know. But I at least like one. And for the next 2 years, Michigan doesn't have one. Talking about an interesting game. There's nothing interesting about Colorado State, Hawaii, and UConn. And there's nothing interesting about those three pinata dolls that they're bringing in next year. The only thing that's interesting is Michigan's going to win. And for a lot of people, that's what they want anyways. Automatic W, sign me up. And the only part that I can say is that I'm not as super critical if they lose a non-conference game and because they had signed up for a tough, a game, And you are going to lose some of those. A lot of people don't want to hear that. I end up getting called a homer, or I'm taking it easy on them, but that's the way I feel. They tried bringing in a home and home with Washington was a good idea. Washington just ended up being a really bad team last year. We knew it week one when they lose to Manitoba, Montana. Okay. We could do this all day, Antoine. Michigan's schedule is usually one of the toughest schedules in the country. I don't mind cupcakes every once in a while. All right, fair point, Antoine. Antoine, you do a good job keeping me in check. I'm not going to cry. Every time I cry, and I will do it again, about the ease of the non-conference schedule this year and next year, I will remember that Antoine reminded me that Michigan traditionally does play a tough Power 5 team. And they try to line it up. It doesn't always work that way. So the next 2 years, I was going to say the next 2 years is a one-off, a two-off. The next 2 years is a two-off for the Wolverines in their non-conference. Okay. Don't forget everywhere else that you can find us, Clubhouse. We're on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, IG, TikTok. I run the TikTok. I just put a video up there yesterday of the big house. I did a drive-by. I am very proud of that TikTok. I put it to Mr. Brighthouse. I think it's some of my better work on TikTok, so check that out. All right, till tomorrow. Thanks for all the feedback. We'll talk to Scar Selly. Talk about those Big Ten offices until